So in Module 7, we're going to start to experiment with the Unity colliders and how we can use scripts to control how our game plays and how our objects interact with other objects in our video game, virtually in the virtual world. We can take advantage of real world physics, or we can sort of make up our own physical world to have our game play the way we want to. Let's look at something simple. So I just have a plane and a cube. The cube has a box collider and rigid body on it, and the plane has a mesh collider on it. But if I let it fall, it's going to, in this case, let us check this. Now let's play it. And it hits, and it lets me know that I've hit this, what I call battleground. So let's take a look at it. This is what's called on collision enter. So when we want to physically hit something and have it take a action afterwards, whatever we want to have happen, we're going to use on collision enter. This usually can just be other. It's just saying the object that we're colliding with. So it's type collision, and then this is the object we're going to collide with, and then we determine what we want to have happen. In this case, when we collide with it, we're going to print collide with the object, and we want to print the object's name. So we're colliding with the object, and we're going to print the object's name as long as it has a collider on it. So we both have colliders, and the player has a rigid body on it, so when we collide, we hit. But notice if I click this trigger, which is where we're going to be using next, then I'm going to go right through it. So let's take a look and when we use on trigger enter and on collision enter. So this is on trigger enter. So this is when we want to go into the space of an object or go past it, etc. And we don't physically want to interact with it. We don't want to hit it and bounce off it or stop in our game. We're going to go through the area and something's going to happen. So anyone playing the game is not even going to notice that you collided with it. But we're going to then trigger an event. So in this case, when I go through or past the area of our object, it's going to print finish the race and give the name of what I collided with. So let's go back to our game and let me load that scene. Okay, and let's make sure everything's set up right. And we have the collider hit. So I'm going to now fall down. Let me clear this. And I'm going right through that like it was a finish line. Even though it doesn't look like anything happened in the game, I did interact with it. I did hit it, and I'm having this printed. So we can use this in quite a few of our games also. Go to a next level, get a notification if you've done something, etc. In order for this to work, again, both of them have to have colliders. One has to have a rigid body, and this has got to be checked. If we're going to use the on trigger enter, then it's got to be set. Otherwise, we're just going to hit it. So remember, if you start fooling around with this, this is when you're going to be going through something, depending upon the game you have built with your script. So make sure that's checked when you do it. So let's look at our car game, see if we can incorporate some of this. And we'll show how I got this physics things going. So in my game, if I play it, let's see what happens. I collide on trigger enter, right? And I think that triggered this other thing to go that, just that reaction on the road. So let me go see if I can hit this now. Oh, it's actually triggering itself. But you can see we're hitting it. So again, on collision enter and on trigger enter. So let's see what we're doing. Let's fool around with our physics here and maybe make this 0.1. And let's see what happens when it bounces. I think it's a little bit more stable. That's still bouncing. Okay, all right. So let's see what we did to get this to work. First of all, on our first obstacle, we have our box collider. Let's check is trigger. Even though we're using on collision enter to collide with it, let's see what happens when we take that box collider and put is trigger. Yeah, so if you've been going through obstacles in your game, you can see why. Because you have that, if you have that box collider is trigger hit, then it's going to not let you hit the object. So we want to make sure we don't have that set for that one. And let's see what happens when I collide with it. Let's see if I got my message. I did. Let's clear it and do it again. Yeah, there's my message. I collided. So let's go to this one and see how I'm destroying. First of all, let's see if we can destroy our bouncing object. And I'm going ahead and click his trigger. And let's see if we can get after that. Destroyed it. And destroyed this one. So the script to destroy these, we're using a game object. And we are using the script called box destroy. So let's take a look at that script. Okay, so we talked about game object last time. I think we plugged it in, but maybe it was with our camera. But when we use a game object as a variable type, that means we're dragging in the object that we want to be used for this to happen. So in this case, we have a public game object variable called obstacle1. And we are doing void on trigger enter. We don't want to collide with the object. We want to destroy it as soon as we hit it. So we're using on trigger enter, even though we are going to collide with it, but we're going to first go through it and then destroy it. So that's how we would if we were destroyed anyway. So, but we have a if statement here. So that means if the object that hits this object is tagged as player, they both have to be equal. So it has to have a tag, it must be an other object, and it must have a tag of player. If it's tagged as player and is a game object, it's going to destroy what we term to be the obstacle. So let's take a look at how that works. So when we have a public game object, we're going to decide what we want to destroy. We can pull anything in here. So in this case, it's going to destroy this. Even though it's not called obstacle 1, I can fill this slide, and I don't have to call that obstacle 2. I could put down whatever I want for this term. And notice I'm using it a couple times in my game. So I pull this object in, and then when I do my other obstacle, the other one I'm going to destroy, I am pulling this obstacle in. So I can use that script anywhere I want to destroy any object I want. I can put it on any object in my game. So I'd like you to sort of fool around with on collision enter, on trigger enter, and then this script to destroy things. As far as that thing bouncing, let's look at what I did. So I just went and clicked and create physic material. So, and this is what created. I renamed it jumping. And you're going to have to fool around with some of this, see what works for you. Make sure you have the bounciness. I mean, the bounciness, if we have like 0.5 or something, doesn't even really bounce. You can fool around with the dynamic friction and static friction. I found these have to be pretty much maximum. I haven't tried multiply yet. Let me see about that. Yeah, seems to work. Maybe even works even better. Seems to keep going straight up and down. Oh, good. Um, and then drag it on the material you want. So in my case, it was the spool. So I think I dragged it in up there. And actually what I did is on my mesh, I dragged this up there. So I drag this, I put it on my object and then it created it there. So drag it up on your object and you should see it in here for your physics game. And let me save a new scene. I'll just call it destroy and I'll call it objects. So every time you do something, you should save a new scene, and that way you can always go back to the old scene if you messed up. So put some objects inside here, get some color on them, get them bouncing, destroy some, collide with some, and keep writing that. Remember, the whole key to this is for you to write it from scratch. If you're just copying videos, at the end of whatever lesson you're doing or whatever you're working with, you really don't know that much. Maybe you've learned a little bit about the interface, but you've just copied their script. And there isn't really any opportunity that we have to sort of back up, go a little bit slower, and see if you can write the script from scratch. So go ahead and try that, and then we're going to start incorporating some of these aspects into it and make it more of a game, extend this road, put some objects in here, either collect things, keep score, etc. And you can maybe tailor your game around some of the things we do and make it your own. Anyway, let me know if you have any problems and just take your time and get it done.